Welcome back from that interesting interview on equity and justice in politics, posing a very important question if it can be achieved. Well, in my opinion, when Nigeria starts having strong institutions over strong individuals, it is at that point that we can see equity and experience justice to a large extent when it comes to politics. Yes, because when you have institutions like the judiciary being truly independent and potent, institutions like INEC being truly independent and potent, and you have the security agencies being truly independent, not influenced by anybody, and then there is the debate of godfatherism, if it's something that can be done away with. And I think, generally speaking, there needs to be a reformation in our political system. And that's why I'm a very, very strong advocate for independent candidacy, because when you see the political system of the country here in Nigeria, you look at the party system, you see that the structures, whether inadvertently or not, tends to support godfatherism. But in a situation where independent candidacy exists, you see that to a long way, it will eliminate godfatherism in Nigeria politics, which has a very, very strong hold right about now. It's still Friday's edition of Morning Right here on Delta Television. My name is Gaga Ikama, the 31st day in the month of July 2026. It is the last day in the 7th month of the year. So from tomorrow, we say things like 7 months down, 5 months to go. And also for those persons that do not like the rains, probably you're looking forward to the August break. Do not worry, it will be here very, very soon. All right, our next stop this morning on the ride is newspaper. Yes, we bring you headlines across the different dailies this morning. We've got for you The Nation, Daily Trust, Nigerian Tribune, Vanguard, The Guardian, New Telegraph, The Punch, and Daily Independent newspaper. Begin with The Nation newspaper, and the major headline here says, how federal government deploying fuel subsidy savings, by Oyedele. How federal government deploying fuel subsidy savings, by Oyedele. We've got two writers attached to that story. It says, funds used for debt servicing, minimum wage, student loan, others. Interesting. Subsidy on petrol, forex accounted for 5% of GDP. Now that's a very, very interesting headline there. If you want to get details of that story, do have to get yourself a copy of the Nation newspaper. Tinubu links Nigeria's insecurity to Sahel crisis. Olubadan leads Oyo Obas to appreciate Orire rescue. Stop parading yourselves as federal government officials, Tinubu tells ex-PIC secretary members. Accord, APC, ADC, SDP signed pacts to guarantee violence-free Osun poll. And I hope that this is actually what will be the outcome and experience of that poll. It should be violence-free, because what we have seen in Osun State in recent weeks has not been encouraging at all. And I hope that they will honor this peace pact. Shetima leads mourners at Alaji's burial. Otedola is first Holdco's largest shareholder with 25.9% stake. FCCPC seeks tighter control to protect electricity consumers. Tinubu, Obasanjo, Aguiyi a patriot. Those are the headlines from the Nation newspaper. Next paper for review is the Daily Trust. End bad governance protests. Victims' families await compensation 2 years after. Now, this is very, very sad. Alhaji Abubakar Alhaji, 1932 to 2026. His life and times. You can get details of that on page 5. How Colonel Ude was killed in Abuja. Another sad commentary on the front of a daily. Federal government sets over 2,000 illicit weapons ablaze. Newlywed sentenced to death for killing husband. Wow. 9 die in Abuja Lokoja road crash. To the top strip of the Daily Trust newspaper now. Stop building flyovers. Tinubu tells governors. 2027. INEC rejects routine deployment of soldiers during elections. Otedola raises stake at First Holdco to 25.8%. The next paper for review is the Nigerian Tribune, and the lead here says, while we refused to negotiate with Orire terrorists, I have a couple of riders, they committed murder and we are ready to finish. They committed murder and we were ready to finish with their families. Nobody is borrowing money to pay salaries now. Another rider, pensioners are receiving their pay and they, that is the governors, should do more instead of building flyovers where there is no numeric traffic. Build roads and arteries network to really enhance the quality of life and accessibility of security agencies to penetrate those areas. That's a statement credited to President Tinubu. You can now see that gave a little detail into one of the headlines from the Daily Trust newspaper, where the president said stop building flyovers. Osun 2026. Political parties seal accord for peaceful poll. The rider Adeleke alleges police bias, wants peace committee to intervene. Queries why arrested Accord members are detained in Abuja, Nasarawa. Osun APC wants arrested political thugs prosecuted without exception. Ooni sues for peace, says power belongs to the people. Let the ballot box alone decide, INEC tells politicians. And the last rider attached to that story, police release Osun SSG. And now from the health sector, Smart Ring uses sweat to measure glucose, and that's according to a study. Zaki Blam killing. LPDC suspends Gazama over federal government's 8 billion naira settlement. Allegations are unfounded, he says. Only 1,200 medical doctors serving 9 million residents in Ogun. NMA raises alarm. Anxiety as INEC sets to publish particulars of presidential, National Assembly candidates tomorrow. 746 million pounds loan. Federal government begins payment of counterpart funding for Apapa, Tinka ports. The rider targets 48-month completion date. Oyo government sets up judicial commission, probe Orire students' abduction. Moving away from the Nigerian Tribune, Next is the Vanguard newspaper. Federal government, Labour clash over use of fuel subsidy removal savings. The riders' savings used to service increased workers' salaries. Others, Oyedele, you are economical with truth. Labour tells federal government, there's finance minister, to produce evidence on salary claim. Okay, this is an interesting headline, and you can get details of that on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Menace of open defecation. Nigeria's silent sanitation emergency. Nigeria mourns ex-finance minister Abubakar Alhaji. Osun election. We won't bow to intimidation, coming from the state governor Adeleke. Landing on Delta Road. Aircraft crew still in DSS detention. Statement coming from the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo. Unmet demands. Resident doctors begin strike August 10. Like, this is really, really disturbing. When will their needs be met? This intermittent failed to embark on strike and eventually embarking on strike, and the federal government making promises, the resident doctors calling off their strike, and then the promises are not fulfilled. I think something needs to be done. There's enough time, about 10 days before they commence their strike. So the federal government needs to act, because we cannot be in a country where our doctors are going on strike. Doctors that are not even enough for the medical demands in the country. Orire, why we refuse to negotiate with terrorists? Statement credited to President Tinubu. Makinde sets up probe panel. Nigeria, other African countries face six-fold security threat in 2 years. And this is coming from US Africom. Moving now to the Guardian newspaper, and the lead here says, high cost of hepatitis care, stressed facilities, expose 20 million to liver damage. This is a very sad headline from the Guardian newspaper. High cost of hepatitis care, stressed facilities, expose 20 million to liver damage. Contract fraud, most prevalent corruption in public sector, says EFCC boss. Contract fraud, most prevalent corruption in public sector, says EFCC boss. Still more headlines from the Guardian newspaper. Fresh claims, counterclaims overshadow Osun peace accord ahead of polls. Fresh claims, counterclaims overshadow Osun peace accord ahead of polls. Federal government ends dirty fuel, says no petrol above 50 ppm in Nigeria. I think that's good news. Federal government adopts household mapping to tackle 15 million out of school children. Banks flag 13,117 BVNs for fraud as consumer credit falls to 3.8 trillion naira. To the top strip of the Guardian newspaper, Senate expands oil sector probe to agencies, firms over NATI's audit findings. Oyedele explains how Nigeria spent foreign exchange, subsidy removal, savings. Huriwa accuses Reps panel of prejudging PFIPC probe. Huriwa accuses Reps panel of prejudging PFIPC probe. Can get details of that story on page 3 of the Vanguard. Next up, we have the New Telegraph. The screaming headline, Resident doctors issue August 10 strike notice over unpaid arrears, welfare concerns. The riders condemn harassment, violent attacks on healthcare workers, demand immediate resolution of lingering crisis at Luth. Only 1,200 medical doctors serving 9 million Ogun residents. A statement coming from the NMA. And lastly, the rider attached to that story, the last rider attached to that story, NUC approves Jigawa Medical Varsity to boost Nigeria's doctor workforce. Tinubu dissolves Presidential Committee on Federal Properties. US launches heavy strikes on Iran after attempted attack on American troops. Osun 2026, INEC deploys undercover operatives to tackle vote buying. If this is very effective, it will be a very, very commendable move, and I hope that is properly implemented and those culpable are apprehended and face the full wrath of the law. Identifies flashpoints to use 4,427 beavers for poll. Oyebamiji absent as candidates sign peace accord. Oni Commission call for violence-free poll. Adeleke alleges police bias, seeks peace committee's intervention in SSG's arrest. Terrorists threaten to marry beautiful women among 176 warrior captives, kill others. The riders Oriri abduction. We refused to pay ransom, negotiate with bandits. Credit statement coming from Tinubu. Makinde constitutes Judicial Commission on Oyo abductions. Scientists link coffee compounds to cellular protection. Tinubu, Obasanjo, Oti call for national unity as Abia honors Agoyeronsi. The rider insecurity. Federal government Southeast draw action plan at Umuahia Security Summit. Wike were appealing to Tinubu over 400 billion naira Millennium Tower project. There's global shift towards grassroots populism, and this is coming from Amakri. Says regionalism antidote to totalitarianism. NNPC Limited to acquire 10% stake in Seplat JV. And lastly, from the New Telegraph newspaper, CBN net forex flows up 33.8% to $20.3 billion in first quarter of 2026. And the last daily we have for you this morning is the Punch newspaper with the lead headline, Oyo abduction. Why retract? Arrested kidnappers' families. This is coming from the president, Tinubu. The riders, abductors wanted us to release their detained members, pay ransom. President. We were prepared to finish with terrorist families. Militants from Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, fueling Nigeria's insecurity. This is coming from the president. So if the president has this intelligence, something needs to be done about this. Fuel subsidy savings report coming soon. And this is a statement credited to the Minister of Finance, Taiwo Oyedele. Drug trafficking in Africa jumps 6-fold in 2 years. And that is according to Africom. Osun 2026. Adeleke Oyebamiji signed peace pact as INEC warns troublemakers. And lastly, from the Punch newspaper, Army probes leaked DSS memo warning of Adamawa Borno attacks. You can get details of that story on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. And we can head back to the studio now. Those are the national dailies we have for you this morning. You can do well to get yourself any of the copies that you would love to get details on any of the headlines or all of the headlines. Alternatively, you can log on to their website to get yourself details of any of those stories. It's a Friday's edition of Morning Ride, and it's time now for us to bring you our next interview this morning, and it's on preventive healthcare, key to a brighter future. And that interview we had the chief medical director of the Asaba Specialist Hospital, Dr. Peace Igosewe, and the vice chairman, Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria, Dr. Urema Obodoaha, and they'll be sharing details and enlightening you and I why preventive health care is key to a brighter future.